Hey everyone, it's Jess Tomlinson here. I've got a story for you. And it's all about how I kept him coming back for more without even asking. All right, now before we get into the story, I just want to clear something up. This video is not about sex. That might be like a future video, so stay tuned for that. This is all about how this cafe that I go to, um, how I've been able to really get this server to like be my personal servant, it feels like. That's kind of a horrible way to put it, but let me just tell you the story. So I go to this cafe here in Las Vegas where I live, and sometimes I'm there for multiple hours just working, and I'll gather with my girlfriends, and sometimes I'm there by myself. Um, and this one server goes around and refills people's coffee. And one thing about me is that I love my coffee and I will take refills all day, every day. Now, the typical person, you just like imagine yourself, right? Like you're in a restaurant setting and the server gives you a refill. What do? Sometimes if you're by yourself, you're like, oh, thanks so much. And then you're just kind of like, go back to your work. If you're with friends, you probably like most of the time aren't even acknowledging the refill. You're just like, or if you are, you're taking a slight little time to say just like, thanks, and maybe not even looking at the person. So today I want to share with you my tips, my techniques that are so powerful to get a man to keep coming back, really in any aspect of life. But today we are focusing on getting your coffee refilled. But again, knowing that this can be applied to really anything. If you want a man to do something for you, and maybe you're frustrated because you feel like you have to ask all the time, this one simple shift, I promise, will have him coming back over and over and over again and fulfilling your desire, whatever that is, without you even having to ask. So you guys want to know what I did? All right. So a couple things that I did. When he first came to refill my coffee the very first time, I used a technique from my playful child archetype. So I have 3 feminine power archetypes. If you want, you can go and take the free quiz and find out what your feminine power archetype is over at jesstomlinson.com/archetype. So I used the first feminine power archetype when he refilled my coffee. And that archetype, the playful child, is playful, right? And so I said to him, oh my gosh, you must have a GPS on me, or you must be a mind reader because I totally love coffee and I really appreciate that you refilled my coffee. So here's what's unique about that. Number one, who says that, right? So immediately you stand out as the woman who is really acknowledging this man in a very creative way. The second thing about that is that it's a little bit like dramatized. And that's what the playful child is all about, right? The playful child is dramatic. Like if you ever see a little kid, like they are just screaming at the top of their lungs or they're giggling with joy and they don't really care. They're just having fun for them. So what I did is I had fun for me because I knew by acknowledging this man who simply refilled my coffee, he's just doing his job, right? This is what we get into our heads is like, oh, they're just doing their job. But what I did is I took an extra moment to connect with him, look at him, and just play and be playful and make a goofy joke out of my obsession with coffee and say that, he must have some GPS on me or be a mind reader because he knows that I like coffee so much. This might seem a little dramatic, but that's the point, okay? So guess what happened? The next time, my coffee was probably still this full. He comes up and says, would you like more coffee? And he's like really enthusiastic and excited. Why? Because I acknowledged him for providing me with more coffee in the first place in a way that was special, unique, and that he could really feel my heart was grateful. All right? So, this is so important, ladies. When you are wanting to receive something from a man, if you are not acknowledging him for what he is already providing you, why would he do it again? This is the simplest thing we can do as women. And for me, it's made a humongous difference in how I appreciate men is just they want to be acknowledged. Ask any man in your life what is one of the things that they wish that they received more from women, and it would be, I wish you would just acknowledge me or say thank you or be grateful for what I do. All right, so that kept him coming back. He filled up my coffee again, and this time, the second time, I used the Radiant Rebel archetype. All right, so what is the Radiant Rebel? She's direct, she's confident, she makes a statement with many times using very little words. So what I said to him is, thank you so much. You're amazing. And I just looked at him. And again, did he deserve to be acknowledged again for doing his job? Yeah, he did. So we really, as women, need to get out of this mindset that like we have this sense of entitlement and it's really screwing us. If you really want to see a man light up, I promise you, try these techniques. And not only is it going to make you happier because he's coming back for more coffee, but you are getting what you want with very, 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 very little effort, simply some gratitude and acknowledgement. So that's how I used my Radiant Rebel. Then guess what happened? Again, he came back. He checked on me so many times, you guys, throughout this day, probably at least 20. So the third time that he came back, I used my Sexy Feminine archetype. And the Sexy Feminine archetype is the third and final archetype. And she is simply the goddess energy. She receives, she knows she's worthy, she's very gentle and heart-centered. So when he poured that coffee for me, I just really looked at him and said, I really appreciate you. Simple, loving, to the point. But just never stopping in my appreciation for him coming back to give me what he knew that I want, which was more of that Joe, more of that caffeine in my system. And he was receiving what he wanted, which was just to be acknowledged. And as a woman, that felt so fulfilling to be able to inspire a man and make him feel good, and also as a woman to receive that attention as well, if I'm really honest with myself. And so I want this for you. Now, the rest of the day, I just switched up all my different ways of appreciating him, bouncing back and forth between the Playful Child, Radiant Rebel, and Sexy Feminine. But you can use any of these archetypes at any time to appreciate a man, use their inspiration, the flavor of their power. As a woman, we have this full range of feminine power, but it's fun to find out your dominant feminine power archetype that you can use in your process of attracting a man so that you can receive that big, meaningful love that you deserve in your own life. So again, if you want to learn more of these techniques, you can go to jesstomlinson.com/archetype, put your name and email in the boxes, and you'll receive immediate access to take the quiz, find out what your archetype is, and move on from there. All right, have a beautiful day.